Good morning, everyone. We live in a world where time is the only currency that never refills. It slips through our fingers while we're busy reacting instead of responding, drifting instead of designing. Today, I want you to pause and ask yourself, what if the next 10 years were not just years that happened to you, but years that were built by you? Start with the why. Ask yourself, why do I want to plan my life from 2025 to 2035? Because drifting has a cost, because routines turn into ruts, and because life without a compass leads you somewhere, but never where you truly want to be. Planning your life doesn't mean you'll control everything. It means you'll focus your energy on the things you can influence: your character, your skills, your relationships, your purpose. Your why is your anchor. Without it, goals are just to-do lists. But when goals serve a purpose, they become fuel. They discover the attribute one. Define the values you refuse to compromise. Not goals, values. Integrity, growth, health, service. Let these guide every decision from now until 2035. 2, choose a life vision, not just a career path. Think of the life you want to live, not just the job you want to do. Your career is part of it, but what about your health, your relationship? Your contribution to society. 3, break the decade into chapters. Each 2-year phase can have a theme: learn, build, lead, multiply, start, reflect. This turns a 10-year plan into a purposeful evolution, not just a checklist. 4, be ready to adjust without quitting. Life will change. You will change. Planning is not about perfection, it's about direction. Update the map, but never forget the destination. 5, surround yourself with accountability, not just motivation. Motivation fades. Systems last. Build a routine. Find a mentor, track your growth, and what reinforces your purpose. End with the oh hat. So what does it look like? You wake up in 2035, not by accident, but by design. You're not wondering where the years went. You're remembering what you built with them. You're not chasing success. You've become someone worth following. It starts today. 1 hour blocked for reflection, 1 journal entry about your 2035 self, 1 hard decision made from your values, not your fears. Your future is not something to discover. It's something to design. Plan your life from 2025 to 2035, because if you don't, someone else will. Thank you. Fifth Kawanitas of TSB Shach. Purpose before planning. Begin with why you want to build the next 10 years intentionally. Values as a compass. Let non-negotiable values guide your goals and daily decisions. Decade as chapters. Break the 10-year period into manageable 2-year themes for clarity and momentum. Flexibility with direction. Plans will evolve. Your mission should remain steady. Systems to motivation. Build systems and accountability for long-term consistency. When people talk about planning the future, they often start with goals. I want to make this much money. I want to have this job. I want to live in this city. But goals on their own are shallow. They're outcomes. And outcomes without context are like arrows shot into the air with no target. The deeper question, the question that truly drives lasting progress, is why do you want those things in the first place? Purpose is what separates activity from impact. It's not enough to be busy. Everyone is busy, but not everyone is moving in a direction that actually matters to them. That's the difference between movement and meaning. Planning a life from 2025 to 2035 without first defining your purpose is like building a house without knowing who's going to live in it. You can lay bricks, you can paint walls, but at some point you'll wonder who you were building for. And that's when people burn out. That's when people feel empty despite achieving everything they thought they wanted. Purpose comes from within. It's not something you find in a career fair or a motivational quote. It's discovered through reflection. By listening to your values, your pain, your passions, and your hopes. Ask yourself, what do I want to contribute? Who do I want to become? What am I willing to struggle for? Purpose doesn't always come with clarity at first, but it always starts with honest questions. And once you get even a glimpse of your why, your entire plan gains weight. Your vision becomes heavier in a good way. It has gravity. It pulls you forward. And most importantly, it helps you say no to the things that don't align. A purpose-led plan means your goals aren't just achievements. They're expressions of who you are. You're not just trying to become a manager or an entrepreneur or a creator. You're using those roles to live out your values. If you value growth, then your goals will stretch you. If you value service, then your goals will help others. If you value excellence, then your goals won't settle for average. When your goals are powered by purpose, you're no longer chasing the next thing. You're building the next version of yourself. That's why purpose must come first. Without it, planning becomes an exercise in performance, not progress. You end up impressing people while depressing yourself. You tick off boxes while quietly wondering, is this it? But with purpose, even the hard days make sense. Even the setbacks feel worth it. Because you're not just doing things, you're becoming someone. And that gives you energy that motivation can't match. Imagine 2 people planning for 2035. One writes down goals like buy a car, make 6 figures, travel the world. The other starts with a purpose. I want to empower others through creativity, or I want to live a life of compassion and impact. Their goals may end up looking similar on the surface, but only one of them will still care when it gets difficult. Only one of them will have the clarity to keep going when circumstances change, because the destination is not a number or a title. It's a life aligned with meaning. So before you make a plan, make a promise to yourself that you won't settle for a life that looks good but feels empty, that you won't confuse motion for meaning, that you will start with your purpose, not as a marketing tagline, but as the foundation of everything you build. When you plan from purpose, the next 10 years won't just be full, they'll be fulfilling. And that changes everything. When it comes to planning your life from 2025 to 2035, one of the most powerful and overlooked elements is your personal value system. Values are not just abstract ideals we talk about. They are the principles that quietly shape our decisions, define our priorities, and ultimately decide who we become. They act like an inner compass. Unlike goals, which can change with time or circumstances, values stay steady. And when the world becomes chaotic or uncertain, it's your values that will keep you anchored. Think about the most important decisions in your life: where to live, what career to pursue, who to build relationships with, how to respond in a crisis. Behind each of those decisions, whether you knew it or not, there was a value influencing the outcome. If you valued freedom, you likely chose independence over security. If you valued loyalty, you stayed committed even when things got hard. If you valued growth, you probably took risks that others were afraid to take. The clearer your values are, the clearer your decisions become. You don't waste time doubting yourself because your direction is no longer about what's popular, it's about what's right for you. But most people don't take the time to define their values clearly. They inherit them, copy them, or follow the loudest voice in the room. As a result, they make plans that look good on paper but feel misaligned in real life. They chase goals that sound impressive but leave them exhausted. That's what happens when your goals are not built on your values. They become burdens instead of fuel. To avoid that trap, you have to do the hard, quiet work of asking what really matters to me. What principles am I willing to protect, even when it costs me something? What kind of person do I want to be in private when no one is watching? When your life plan is built on values, it changes how you measure success. It's no longer about comparison. It's about integrity. You could have a smaller bank account, but a clearer conscience. You could take longer to reach your goals, but you'll know you did it the right way. That's a different kind of success. It's deeper. It lasts. It doesn't disappear when circumstances change because it was never dependent on external achievement in the first place. Let's say your top values are honesty, learning, and service. Suddenly, your goals begin to reflect those things. You don't just want to succeed, you want to succeed honestly. You don't just want to grow a business. You want to keep learning and evolving as a leader. You don't just want a platform. You want to use it to help others. And when obstacles show up, and they always will, your values will help you decide whether to adapt, push forward, or walk away. They give you something stronger than motivation. They give you direction. Planning your life without values is like building a ship with no rudder. You might move, but you won't know where you're going, or worse, you'll follow someone else's path and arrive at a destination that was never meant for you. But when you let your values guide you, your goals become more than tasks. They become tools. Your calendar becomes a reflection of your priorities. Your relationships grow with depth and trust. You stop chasing approval and start living with alignment. In the next 10 years, you will face opportunities, temptations, and crossroads that could change everything. In those moments, you won't always have time to weigh every option. But if your values are clear, the right decision will often be obvious. You'll feel it. And even if it's hard, you'll have peace. Because you're not just building a future that looks good, you're building a life that feels right. That kind of clarity only comes when your values are not just something you believe in, but something you build from. When we think about a 10-year life plan, it can feel overwhelming. 10 years is a long stretch of time, and imagining what your life will look like that far ahead can create more confusion than clarity. That's why one of the most effective ways to approach the next decade is to break it down into chapters. Just like a book isn't written in one sitting, your life won't transform overnight. But when you divide the decade into phases, each with its own purpose, focus, and identity, you begin to see growth as a sequence of intentional steps rather than one giant leap. Every chapter in your life doesn't need to be revolutionary. It just needs to move the story forward. When you break the decade into smaller parts, let's say 5 phases of 2 years each, you give yourself permission to evolve. You allow space for learning, change, and reflection. In the first chapter, you might focus on learning and building a foundation, acquiring skills, deepening your knowledge, understanding your strengths. The next chapter could be about creating, starting something new, building momentum, taking calculated risks. After that, you might focus on leadership, mentoring, managing, or influencing others in a more intentional way. Then a chapter of scaling, refining, or multiplying your impact. And finally, a chapter of reflection and contribution, giving back, passing on what you've learned, and reevaluating your next vision. This structure doesn't limit you. In fact, it gives you more freedom. Because when you treat your life like a series of meaningful chapters, You release the pressure to have everything figured out right now. You no longer expect yourself to master everything in a year or reach your final form by 2026. You realize that each phase has its own role in preparing you for the next. You accept that growth isn't always visible and success doesn't always come in straight lines. Some chapters will feel fast and full of momentum. Others will feel slow and quiet, but still just as necessary. Chapters also help you recover from setbacks. If something doesn't go as planned in one chapter, it doesn't ruin the entire book. You can regroup in the next one. You're not stuck with one version of your goals or identity. You can adjust and still remain aligned with your bigger purpose. A chapter-based mindset makes room for failure without shame and for change without confusion. You understand that your path is dynamic, not fixed. That's the beauty of long-term planning with short-term focus. You stay rooted in direction but flexible in execution, and with each chapter, your sense of identity grows. You become someone slightly different, more aware, more experienced, more resilient. You get to look back and say, in that season, I was learning who I was. In this season, I'm learning how to lead. In the next, I want to give more than I take. This rhythm of intentional growth creates a deeper narrative to your life. It's not just a list of accomplishments. It's a journey with layers, themes, and meaning. What makes this approach so powerful is that it aligns with how we naturally grow. Human development isn't static, it happens in stages. Who you are today is not who you'll be in 5 years. Your goals, habits, and even your beliefs may evolve. By allowing your plan to evolve with you, chapter by chapter, you're not resisting change. You're building with it. You're treating your future not as a fixed blueprint, but as a living document. That mindset will keep you both grounded and inspired. Instead of obsessing over the perfect 10-year plan, ask yourself, what's the theme of this chapter in my life? What skill, mindset, or experience should I focus on right now that will prepare me for the next one? When you do that, you stop treating time like something you're racing against and start using it as something you're working with. That's how meaningful progress is made chapter by chapter. Planning your life for the next 10 years can give you clarity, motivation, and purpose. But only if you understand one essential truth: the plan will change. No matter how carefully you design your path, life will interrupt it. Circumstances will shift. Opportunities you never expected will appear, and some goals you were certain about might lose their meaning along the way. That's not a failure of planning. That's the nature of life. What makes a plan powerful is not how rigid it is, but how adaptable it is while still moving in the right direction. The mistake many people make when planning their lives is confusing structure with certainty. They think if they write down their goals, everything will go exactly as imagined. And when that doesn't happen, when a job doesn't work out, when a personal challenge arises, when the world itself changes, they assume the plan failed, or worse, that they failed. But planning isn't about predicting the future. It's about preparing for it. It's about setting a direction that keeps you aligned with your purpose, no matter how the road twists. Direction gives you focus. Flexibility gives you resilience. You need both. If you only have direction but no flexibility, you'll burn out trying to control what's uncontrollable. If you only have flexibility but no direction, you'll drift without ever making meaningful progress. But when you combine both, you create a mindset that can withstand change, adapt to it, and still grow through it. That mindset doesn't break under pressure. It bends and realigns. Life will test your plans. You may decide to pursue a specific career path and find that halfway through, your interests have evolved. You may build a business that succeeds in ways you never imagined but requires a different kind of energy than you expected. You may experience setbacks, health issues, financial challenges, or personal losses that force you to slow down or change course. In each of these moments, your ability to remain flexible without losing sight of your deeper direction will define your growth. Being flexible doesn't mean lowering your standards or changing your mind every time things get hard. It means knowing the difference between quitting and adjusting. It means recognizing that the goal was never just to reach a destination. It was to become someone capable, purposeful, and wise through the journey. If your direction is rooted in strong values and a clear purpose, you can afford to let go of specific timelines or methods. You can pivot without guilt. You can pause without losing momentum. You can evolve without losing yourself. This approach also opens up space for creativity and opportunity. When you're flexible, you're more open to seeing new paths that you didn't consider before. You're not so locked into one outcome that you miss a better one. Some of the most meaningful progress you'll make will come from unexpected doors. But those doors won't open unless you stay mentally open. Flexibility allows you to say, this wasn't part of the original plan, but it aligns with who I'm becoming, and that shift can lead to extraordinary growth. Over the next 10 years, you will grow in ways you can't fully predict. The world will evolve, industries will change, your relationships will shift, and your goals will mature. Flexibility with direction means you give yourself permission to change without feeling lost. It means you revisit your plans, refine them, and keep going. It means you treat your plan not as a rigid map, but as a living document, one that's allowed to grow with you. The most successful people aren't those who followed a straight line. They're the ones who stayed aligned while making turns. They didn't let obstacles rewrite their entire story. They just rewrote the route and kept moving. And you can too, as long as you stay committed to the deeper direction that matters more than any single plan ever could. In the process of planning your life from 2025 to 2035, one of the most important decisions you will face repeatedly is this: will you build your identity? Or will you build your image? The difference between the two is subtle but powerful. Image is how others see you, what you show the world, what you post, what you wear, what you achieve on the surface. Identity is how you see yourself, what you believe, how you act when no one's watching, what you stand for even when it costs you. And in a world that constantly rewards appearance, choosing to build your identity is both rare and transformative. When you prioritize image, your decisions start to revolve around perception. You pick goals that sound impressive, not goals that actually mean something to you. You start measuring success by likes, attention, status, and comparisons. And even when you succeed by those standards, you still feel hollow because deep down you know the applause is for a version of you that isn't fully real. That's the danger of image. It feeds the ego but starves the soul. It keeps you busy performing instead of growing. It demands consistency in how you're seen, not in who you're becoming. But when you focus on identity, everything shifts. You stop asking, how do I look to others? And start asking, am I becoming someone I respect? You begin to choose integrity over approval, depth over appearance, and purpose over popularity. Identity is built through action, through daily choices, through showing up with honesty and discipline. It's not flashy, and it doesn't always get immediate recognition, but it builds something much more valuable: inner confidence. When you know who you are, the noise outside doesn't shake you as much. You become harder to manipulate, more grounded in your values, and more consistent in your direction. As you plan for the next 10 years, think about who you want to become, not just what you want to do. Ask yourself what kind of character you need to develop to handle the life you're building. If you want to lead, are you learning humility and responsibility, or are you only chasing authority? If you want to create impact, are you building emotional resilience, or are you just seeking attention? If you want financial success, are you developing discipline and vision, or are you only pursuing short-term gain? These questions don't just build better plans, they build stronger people. The truth is, your image might open some doors, but your identity is what keeps them open. A polished reputation might impress others temporarily, but only a strong identity can withstand pressure, criticism, and change. The world will challenge you, and your identity will be tested. You may go through seasons where you're misunderstood, overlooked, or doubted. But if you're rooted in your own truth, if you've built your life on identity rather than appearance, you'll stand firm. And when success comes, it won't change you because you didn't chase success to feel valuable. You brought value into everything you did. This mindset also gives you freedom. When you stop trying to protect a perfect image, you free yourself to grow, to fail, to evolve without fear of judgment. You stop needing to be everything to everyone. You start choosing what matters and you build from there. Your focus becomes long-term growth, not short-term validation. And ironically, that authenticity often builds deeper trust and influence than any curated image ever could. In the next decade, the world around you will constantly invite you to build your image. Social media, competition, comparison, it will all push you to focus on how you look rather than who you are. But if you want peace, if you want purpose, and if you want a life that holds up under pressure, choose to build identity. Because image may fade, but identity endures, and who you become will always matter more than how you appear. As you stand at the threshold of a new decade from 2025 to 2035, the question is not simply what you want to achieve, but who you're willing to become. This journey is not about filling your calendar with goals. It's about building a life rooted in values, shaped by purpose and directed by intentional choices. Planning your life is not an act of prediction, it's a declaration of direction. And in this declaration, you have the power to design your growth chapter by chapter with the courage to stay flexible and the wisdom to stay true to yourself. Let your values be the compass, your identity be the foundation, and your adaptability be your strength. Refuse to build a life that only looks good. Build one that feels right, one that stands when storms come, one that reflects who you truly are. Because a well-planned life is not about perfection. It's about alignment. It's not about control. It's about clarity. And when you lead yourself with vision, integrity, and heart, you don't just make it through the next 10 years. You become the kind of person who leads others through theirs. This is your decade. Start building it like it matters, because it does.